Every human being is unique, shaped by a genetic code unlike anyone else's. But for a rare few, that uniqueness goes far beyond the ordinary. Born with extraordinary conditions, astonishing features, or traits so rare they seem impossible, these individuals have fascinated scientists and captivated millions around the world. These are the 19 people you won't believe really exist. Number 19. Edward Nino Hernandez. For years, the title of shortest living man on the planet belonged to a dancer from Colombia who could stand upright beneath most people's waistlines. Edward Nino Hernandez was crowned by Guinness World Records on the 4th of September, 2010, when he was 24 years old, measuring just over 2 feet 3 inches tall and weighing only about 22 pounds. By the time he was 33, he had grown a fraction, reaching close to 2 feet 4 inches. His tiny stature traces back to early childhood. According to his mother, his growth simply stopped around the age of 2, and doctors have pointed to severe hypothyroidism as the main reason his body never developed the way most do. Aside from some trouble with his vision, he is otherwise a healthy man. What sets him apart is not really the number on the measuring tape, but what he does with the body he has. He loves dancing to reggaeton, dreams of one day owning a Mercedes Benz, and holds tight to the goal of traveling the world and making it as a dancer and actor. Number 18. Zion Clark. Zion Clark crosses a room on his hands the way other people walk, and in 2021, he did it fast enough to enter the record books. Born in 1997 with a rare condition called caudal regression syndrome, he came into the world with no legs, an absence that shaped his body from the start, but never got to decide what he did with it. Caudal regression syndrome develops before birth, when the lower spine fails to form the way it should, sometimes leaving it partly built and sometimes barely there at all. For Clark, that meant no lower limbs, along with the risk of trouble in other systems of the body. He grew up inside the foster care system, moving through years marked by bullying and a deep sense of being on the outside of everything. Wrestling is where that changed. On the mat, he found a place that finally felt like his own, and he threw everything into it. Success did not come quickly. He lost plenty early on, but he kept grinding, and by his senior year of high school, he had built a record of 33 wins against 15 losses, enough to earn a place wrestling at Kent State University in Ohio. Off the mat, he turned his life into a message. He speaks to audiences about resilience, shared his story in a documentary called Zion, and wrote his own book, Zion Unmatched, becoming one of the clearest voices in the disabled community. Then came the record. In 2021, Guinness officially named him the fastest man on 2 hands after he covered 20 meters in just 4.78 seconds, powering across the floor on his palms faster than most people manage on their feet. That was only one of several world records he would hold, and behind all of them sits a simple idea he lives by and repeats to anyone who will listen: no excuses. Number 17. Gary Turner. There is a video of a man pulling the skin of his neck out several inches from his throat like taffy, and it looks fake until you learn the condition behind it. Gary Turner, from England, holds a Guinness World Record for the stretchiest skin on Earth, able to pull the skin on his stomach out more than 6 inches before it snaps back. The reason is a genetic disorder called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, a group of conditions that affect collagen, the protein that gives skin and joints their strength. When collagen doesn't form correctly, tissue that should be firm becomes loose and elastic. Turner noticed it young, back when he realized as a boy that his skin stretched far past anything his friends could manage. For a while, it was simply a party trick. Then, in 1999, he appeared on a television program built around the unbelievable, and that brought him to record keepers who made it official. Since then, he has turned the condition into a livelihood, performing around the world. The trick has a real cost. The same faulty collagen that lets his skin stretch also leaves his joints loose and unstable, and he lives with chronic pain and fatigue. Skin that stretches so easily also bruises and tears easily. Even so, he talks about it without bitterness, treating it as the thing that gave him a strange and interesting life, rather than the thing that took an ordinary one away. Number 16. Claudio Vieira de Oliveira. When Claudio Vieira de Oliveira was born in Brazil, doctors told his mother he would not survive a full day, and they suggested she simply not feed him. His body was shaped by a condition called arthrogryposis multiplex congenita, which locks the joints and twists the limbs and spine, and in his case, it bent his head backwards so far that it rested against his upper back, leaving him to face the world upside down. His mother refused the advice. She fed him, cared for him, and decided that whatever life he had would be one worth giving. That decision turned out to be the hinge his story swings on. The boy who was supposed to die within hours grew up, learning to eat, to move, and to work around the shape he was born into. He also turned out to be sharp. He did well in school, developed a head for numbers, and went to college to study accounting, a field plenty of people assumed was closed to him. He proved them wrong, built a career, and then went further, becoming a motivational speaker who tells audiences that a body is not a verdict. Number 15. Paul Karason. Imagine a man walking into a room with skin the color of a deep bruise, a permanent blue-gray from his scalp to his feet. Not makeup, not a trick of the light, but his real skin, and nothing on earth could wash it off. That was Paul Karason, an American who spent most of his life looking like everyone else. The change began in the 1990s when he started brewing his own colloidal silver at home. He had come across claims that silver could heal skin trouble and boost health, so he drank the mixture regularly, expecting it to help. For a long stretch, nothing seemed to happen. But silver does not leave the body. Month by month, year by year, tiny particles gathered in his tissue and settled into his skin, where sunlight set off a reaction, much like the one that darkens a photograph. His skin turned blue, and it stayed blue for good. Doctors named it argyria, a rare and permanent condition caused by taking in far too much silver. There is no cure, and no way to undo it. Once the silver is in the skin, it stays there for life. His story spread across the news, and audiences around the world found it hard to look away. Paul himself said he had no regrets, but doctors used his case over and over as a warning about the dangers of self-medicating with unregulated products. He died in 2013 at 62, of heart failure and pneumonia rather than the argyria itself, though the strange blue skin is what the world remembers. Silver supplements are still sold online today, often wrapped in the same promises he once believed. Number 14. Abigail and Brittany Hensel. Two girls were born in Minnesota in the spring of 1990, and they arrived sharing a single body. Abigail and Brittany Hensel are conjoined twins of a rare type. Doctors call dicephalic parapagus, which means they have two heads and two necks rising from one torso. Everything from the shoulders down looks like the body of a single person, but inside, the picture is more complicated. Each sister has her own heart, her own lungs, her own stomach, and her own spine. Lower down, they overlap, sharing a liver, a single large intestine, and a reproductive system. The part that fascinates people most is control. Abigail runs the right arm and right leg. Brittany runs the left arm and left leg. Neither can feel much on the other's side. To do anything at all with that body, from tying a shoe to clapping, they have to cooperate in a way no one else needs to. As small children, they taught themselves that cooperation from scratch, learning to walk, run, and swim by coordinating two separate minds moving one pair of legs. They got so good at it that they learned to ride a bicycle together. They went to ordinary schools, took part in activities like any other kids, and earned their degrees from Bethel University in 2012, each graduating with her own diploma in education. They went on to work as teachers, choosing mostly to keep their lives private. What profiles keep returning to is not the medical rarity, but the ordinariness they built around it. Two people with two personalities moving through the world in one shared frame and making it look almost easy. Number 13. Tress Johnson. Doctors in Missouri looked at Tress Johnson when he was born and gave him a 0% chance of surviving. He had arrived with a severe craniofacial condition, a wide cleft, eyes set far apart, a flattened nose, and a skull shaped unlike any they expected him to live with. They doubted he could breathe or eat on his own, and they feared his brain would never develop. His family decided the prognosis was a starting point, not a sentence. They surrounded him with care and carried him through surgery after surgery to rebuild his skull and face so he could do the basic things his body had not been built to do. Each operation was followed by a hard recovery, and each recovery by the ordinary cruelty of strangers staring. None of it dimmed him. Trez grew into an energetic, outgoing kid who went to school, made friends, and threw himself into life with a joy the early charts said he would never get to have. His story became one that families facing similar diagnoses hold on to, proof that the numbers a doctor gives at birth do not get the final word on a life. Number 12, Richard Norris. One accident in 1997 erased Richard Norris. He was in his early 20s, living in Virginia, when a gun went off by mistake, and the blast tore into his face. It took his nose, his lips, his jaw, his chin, and most of his tongue, leaving damage so severe that no ordinary surgery could rebuild it. Doctors spent years trying, borrowing tissue from other parts of his body, and none of it came close to giving him back a normal face. So, he vanished from the world. He draped cloth over every mirror in his house. He stopped going out in daylight, and when he had to leave, he hid behind a mask. He ate by himself, moved through the world mostly after dark, and slowly pulled away from nearly everyone he knew. Depression settled in, and thoughts of ending it followed. For more than 10 years, he lived like a ghost, haunting his own home. Then, in March of 2012, everything shifted. A surgical team at the University of Maryland, led by Dr. Eduardo Rodriguez, carried out what was then the most extensive face transplant ever attempted. Over roughly 36 hours, they took the entire face of a deceased donor, the skin, the muscle, the nerves, the bone, both jaws, the teeth, and part of the tongue, and gave it to Richard. When the bandages came away, he had a face again. Not the one he was born with, and not the donor's exactly either, but a new one built from another man's gift. He had to relearn how to chew, how to swallow, how to shape words. The drugs he now takes every day to keep his body from rejecting the transplant have brought their own problems, including kidney trouble, but for the first time in over a decade, he could walk outside in daylight and simply be seen. Number 11, Didier Montalvo. A boy in rural Colombia was born with a giant dark mole so large it spread across close to 40% of his body, thick and covered in hair, curving over his back like a shell. That shell earned him a cruel nickname, Turtle Boy, and it earned his family the belief among superstitious neighbors that the child was cursed. Didier Montalvo carried a rare condition called congenital melanocytic nevus, which produces oversized moles that can grow dangerous over time. His family loved him fiercely, but as subsistence farmers in a remote area, they had no way to pay for the surgery he needed. What changed his life was a story. A journalist wrote about him, the article traveled across the internet, and people around the world who had never met him were moved enough to send money. The donations paid for Didier to reach the capital and undergo a series of risky operations to remove the enormous mole. The surgeons took it off entirely. For the first time, he could run and play with other children without the weight on his back or the fear in their eyes. A new life bought by the kindness of strangers he would never meet. Number 10, Sam Berns. Fewer than 200 children in the world are known to have classical progeria at any given time, and Sam Berns, born in Massachusetts, was one of them. The condition causes the body to age at a wildly accelerated pace, so that a child develops the physical traits of someone many decades older: hair loss, stiff joints, thinning skin, and the heart problems of old age. He was diagnosed at 2, and children with progeria rarely live past their early teens. Rather than shrink from that, Sam became one of the most recognizable faces of the disease. His parents, both doctors, founded a research foundation to hunt for a treatment, and Sam's willingness to tell his story helped it raise well over $35 million, money that funded the drug trials now giving children like him a little more time. Those same experimental treatments helped extend his own life somewhat past what was expected. He refused to let the condition shrink his world. He went to school, played music, loved sports, and in 2013, at 17, gave a talk on his philosophy for a happy life that reached millions who had never heard of progeria. He died a year later from complications of the disease, but the point of his life was never how long it lasted. It was how much he managed to pour into it and how many people he moved along the way. Number 9, Carlos Rodriguez. The first time people saw Carlos Rodriguez, most were sure the photo was fake. The entire front of his skull looks scooped away, sunken in above the eyes, yet he is very much alive. The injury goes back to when he was 14. He stole a car while high on drugs, lost control, and hit a telephone pole, getting thrown headfirst through the windshield. To save him, surgeons removed a large part of his skull and brain, leaving a deep hollow in his head. Around 2010, his story spread online, earning him the nickname Halfie. And doctors point to his case as a striking example of how the brain adapts, since he kept his memory and speech. His life stayed rough, though. He was arrested repeatedly over the years, including on arson charges in 2016 after allegedly setting a mattress on fire. Number 8. Lalit Patidar. In a small village in India, a boy grew up with thick dark hair covering nearly his entire face, and neighbors whispered that he was cursed. Lalit Patidar was born with hypertrichosis, a genetic condition so rare it is sometimes nicknamed werewolf syndrome, in which hair grows in dense, abnormal amounts across the body and face. The hair was there from birth and only thickened as he aged. In a place steeped in superstition, that appearance frightened people, and some believed he was possessed. The practical problems were real too, because all that hair made it hard for his body to regulate its temperature and left him prone to skin irritation. Harder still were the stares and the loneliness of being treated as something to fear. His family never bought the superstition. They saw a bright, curious kid under the hair and raised him to see himself the same way. He stayed in school, did well, and grew into someone comfortable in his own skin. Even as doctors confirmed the condition had no cure, his story spread. And with it came a small shift, strangers learning that the boy behind the frightening rumor was just a boy. Number 7. Hunter Steinitz. Hunter Steinitz's skin builds itself about 10 times faster than anyone else's, and that speed is the whole problem. Instead of soft, flexible skin, her body forms thick, hard, plate-like scales that cover her from head to toe and pull tight over everything underneath. Her lips crack, her eyelids strain. Getting through a single ordinary day takes more out of her than a full week takes out of most people. Born in 1994, Hunter has harlequin ichthyosis, one of the rarest and most severe skin conditions known. So rare that only a small handful of people in the United States live with it at all. Her mornings start with a long soak in the bath, just to soften the buildup, followed by heavy layers of moisturizer smeared over her whole body to hold back the cracking and dryness. It is slow, it demands patience, and it never once lets up. Growing up in Pittsburgh, she was surrounded by kids who didn't understand what they were seeing and were frightened by it, and cruel because of that fear. Early on, she made a choice that shaped everything after. Instead of hiding, she started speaking at schools, at public events, and alongside a foundation devoted to skin conditions like hers, helping others feel less alone. National programs noticed her, and she appeared on television and in a science documentary about extraordinary human skin. She wears a wig, shows her red scaled skin without apology, and faces a camera not to put on a show, but simply to exist in full view. For most people, being seen costs nothing. For Hunter, it is a decision she makes every single day again. Number 6. Stan Larkin. For 555 days, Stan Larkin lived without a human heart in his chest. What kept him alive was an artificial one, run by a machine he carried in a backpack every hour of every day, a device called the Freedom Driver, connected to him by 2 tubes running beneath his ribs, to a power source he never set down. His story began on a basketball court. At 16, playing near his home, he suddenly collapsed, and doctors traced it to a heart condition of the kind that quietly threatens young athletes. They fitted him first with a defibrillator, but eventually his heart failed to the point that he needed a transplant. With no donor available, he faced an impossible wait, and the artificial heart in the backpack was what carried him through it. Astonishingly, he kept playing basketball while wired to the machine, until at last, a donor heart came and he received his transplant, walking away from years of borrowed time with a real heart of his own. Number 5. Billy Owen. Billy Owen was a motorcycle mechanic in Oklahoma, living with his wife and their 6-month-old son, when headaches and trouble breathing crept in. For a while, doctors could not name what was wrong, and when they finally did, the answer was brutal. To save his life, they had to remove parts of his face, including his right eye. His odds were grim, around 1 in 10, but he pushed through anyway. The face he was left with could have ended him socially, but Billy went the other direction and turned it into a career. He became a performer and actor, using his appearance to play zombies in music videos and films and to work in amusement parks. He even took the stage at a fringe festival near Los Angeles to tell his own story. And rather than pity, he handed audiences something closer to inspiration, showing what a person can build out of the wreckage of the worst news of their life. Number 4. Rahma Haruna. When Rahma Haruna was about 6 months old, her arms and legs simply stopped growing, and to this day, doctors have no name for what happened to her. Her limbs never developed, leaving her unable to walk, crawl, or hold most things. Photos of her spread online, showing her sitting inside a plastic bucket, which her brother Fahad used to carry her from place to place because it was the easiest way to move her. When those images went viral, a stranger moved by her situation donated a wheelchair to make getting around easier. Rahma may have been limited in her body, but people who knew her described a bright, warm girl, sharp and friendly, deeply devoted to the little brother who cared for her each day. She dreamed of one day running her own small shop, a dream that, sadly, never got the chance to come true. Number 3. Afsheen Gul. For more than 10 years, a girl in rural Pakistan could not sit up straight, feed herself, or walk on her own. Her neck was wrenched almost 90 degrees to one side and locked there, stuck in that position ever since a fall she took when she was only 10 months old. Afsheen Gul, from Miti in the Sindh province, lived with cerebral palsy and a rare spinal condition in which the top 2 vertebrae had rotated and fused at an unnatural angle. Doctors near her home looked at her case and told her family it was beyond anything they could fix. Then her family reached a spine specialist named Dr. Rajagapalan Krishnan at a hospital in Delhi, India. Even with the tension that so often sits between the two countries, he agreed to take her case for free. He arranged all of it: the surgeries, the hospital stay, the visa, and safe passage across the border. The main operation, about 6 hours long in February of 2022, used titanium rods and screws to bring her skull back into line with her spine. By 2025, videos from her family showed something that would have seemed impossible a few years earlier. Afsheen, standing on her own, walking steadily, helping around the house, and smiling with full control of her head. Number 2. Isaiah Acosta. Isaiah Acosta was born with his organs reversed and no jaw at all, and for the first 15 minutes of his life, he had no oxygen. Doctors told his mother he likely would not live long and might spend his life confined to a bed. He grew up unable to speak, yet he became the world's first rapper who does not use his voice. In 2016, he wrote an inspirational rap song called Oxygen to Fly, which a Phoenix rapper performed for him. He communicates through gestures and by typing on his phone, and he became an ambassador for a children's hospital network where he receives care. Rather than dwell on everything his body cannot do, he holds to a simple belief that everyone has a purpose here, and that the task is to keep going and keep learning even while carrying pain. Number 1. Myrtle Corbin. When Myrtle Corbin was born in Tennessee in 1868, the doctor at the delivery had never seen anything like her, and almost no one has since. Below her waist, she had not one lower body, but the beginnings of 2. She had 2 separate pelvises sitting side by side, and growing from them were 4 legs. The condition is called dipicus, and it happens when a developing body starts to split into twins but never fully separates, leaving one person carrying the partial anatomy of 2. Her 2 inner legs were smaller and weaker, tucked between the outer pair she used to walk. She could move all of them to some degree, though the inner legs never carried her weight well. What could have been treated as a tragedy became, in the language of her era, an attraction. By the age of 13, she was appearing in sideshows, billed as the 4-legged girl from Texas, and crowds paid to watch her demonstrate that each limb could move on its own. The sideshow world of the late 1800s was built on exploiting bodies like hers, but Corbin kept control of her own life. She was one of the highest paid performers of her time, and she used that footing to choose her own path. In 1886, she married a doctor named James Clinton Bicknell, and here her story turns even stranger. Because she had 2 separate reproductive systems, she carried children in both, giving birth to 5 children delivered from her 2 separate wombs. She lived quietly in her later years, known as a warm and capable woman and a skilled seamstress who had built an ordinary life on top of an extraordinary body. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.